For over 15 years, the world has been captivated by a ghost, a digital phantom who showed up in the wake of a global financial meltdown, dropped a 9-page blueprint for a new kind of money, and then vanished as mysteriously as he appeared. We only know him by his pseudonym, Satoshi Nakamoto. The search for his true identity has become a global scavenger hunt, roping in investigative journalists, government agencies, and an army of internet sleuths all asking the same thing. Who is Satoshi Nakamoto? But what if that's the wrong question? What if the real question we should be asking is, what happens if we find out? Because the identity of Bitcoin's creator isn't just some fun mystery. It's a ticking time bomb, a single point of failure buried at the heart of the world's most decentralized asset. The person or group who gave Bitcoin to the world is also the one entity with the power to tear it all down. This isn't about solving a puzzle. It's about understanding why some doors are better left unopened. Unmasking Satoshi Nakamoto won't just end a mystery, it could end Bitcoin forever. The story of Satoshi Nakamoto isn't just the origin of Bitcoin, it's the creation myth of our time. It starts in October 2008, as the world's financial system was crumbling under its own corruption and greed. Lehman Brothers had just collapsed, markets were in a freefall, and trust in the institutions that managed our money had completely evaporated. It was in this climate of chaos that a paper appeared on a niche cryptography mailing list, titled Bitcoin, a Peer-to-Peer Electronic Cash System. The author, Satoshi Nakamoto, proposed something that sounded impossible. A system for digital money that didn't need a bank or any central authority. It was run by math, secured by code, and owned by its users. For the next 2 years, Satoshi worked tirelessly with a small group of early believers, refining the code, answering questions on forums, and breathing life into his creation. He was a prolific, yet intensely private leader. Then, in April 2011, he sent his final public email. He wrote that he had moved on to other things and that Bitcoin was in good hands. And then he was gone. He hasn't been heard from since. In his wake, he left two things. The first was Bitcoin, a technology that would explode into a multi-trillion-dollar asset and spark a global financial revolution. The second was a wallet, a digital vault containing the fruits of his early mining. Through careful blockchain analysis, researchers have identified a distinct digital fingerprint known as the Satoshi pattern. This pattern links Satoshi to the mining of around 22,000 blocks, each with a reward of 50 bitcoins. The consensus is that Satoshi Nakamoto controls a wallet with somewhere between 1 and 1.1 million BTC. This isn't just a fortune, it's a weapon. At today's prices, it's worth well over $100 billion. It's one of the largest single hoards of wealth on the planet, and it has sat completely dormant since 2010, a silent testament to its creator's discipline, or maybe his absence. This colossal sum, often called the Satoshi stash, is the single greatest threat to Bitcoin's existence. It's a loaded gun pointed at the heart of the market, and revealing Satoshi's identity could be the trigger. To see why, we need to look at the three pillars of destruction that would crumble if the ghost of Satoshi was ever given a face. These aren't abstract risks. They are the concrete, disastrous scenarios that would unfold the moment we learn who Satoshi truly is. The most immediate and obvious threat of unmasking Satoshi is purely economic. It's the market nuke scenario. The moment Satoshi's 1 million bitcoins go from being theoretical to being active. The Bitcoin market, like any other, runs on supply and demand. Right now, most people consider Satoshi's coins to be effectively gone, lost, or held by a creator who would never touch them. This belief acts as a huge, permanent supply shortage that the market has priced in. If that suddenly changed, the psychological and financial fallout would be devastating. Imagine the news breaking from a credible source. Satoshi Nakamoto is no longer anonymous. Instantly, every trader, every institution, and every algorithm on Earth would focus on that dormant wallet. The question would shift from if the coins will move to when. The movement of even a single Bitcoin from a known Satoshi wallet would trigger a global panic. Why? Because it signals intent. For years, these coins have been a sacred relic. Their movement could only mean one of two catastrophic things. Either Satoshi has lost faith in his own creation and is cashing out, or someone else has gotten control of the keys. The reaction would be instantaneous. Market sentiment would evaporate. Traders would scramble to sell, not because Bitcoin's fundamentals changed, but because they know everyone else is about to sell. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, a bank run on a global scale. Long-term holders who bought into the myth of the absent creator would see their faith shattered. Their selling would add to the downward spiral. The market would be flooded with sell orders, completely overwhelming any buyers. Let's break down the mechanics of this collapse. Satoshi's 1.1 million BTC is about 5% of the total 21 million coin supply, but it's a much bigger slice of the actual liquid supply on exchanges. If he tried to sell even a fraction of this on the open market, the price would crater. Analysis of exchange order books shows that selling just a few thousand bitcoins can push the price down significantly. Selling hundreds of thousands would swallow all available buy orders, triggering a flash crash of historic proportions. This initial price drop would set off a deadly chain reaction. The crypto market is filled with leverage. Hundreds of billions of dollars in derivatives and leveraged positions are tied to the price of Bitcoin. As the price falls, it would trigger a cascade of liquidations. Automated systems would force sell positions to cover margin calls, pushing the price down even further, which in turn triggers even more liquidations. This is the domino effect behind every major crypto crash. Only this time, it would be started by the biggest whale in history. The shockwave would ripple across the whole ecosystem. Bitcoin ETFs, a cornerstone of Wall Street adoption, would see their value evaporate, causing mass redemptions. DeFi protocols using Bitcoin as collateral would become insolvent. Miners whose businesses depend on Bitcoin's value would be forced to shut down. The entire digital economy would face a systemic crisis. Some might argue a rational Satoshi wouldn't just dump his coins at once. It would destroy his own wealth. He'd sell slowly. But even this slow bleed is a nightmare. The moment he starts selling, the market knows there are hundreds of thousands more coins waiting in the wings. This massive supply overhang would kill the price for years. Every rally would be cut short by the fear of another Satoshi sale. Investment would dry up. The story of Bitcoin as scarce digital gold would be replaced by the story of an asset held hostage by its creator. This isn't hyperbole, it's market mechanics. Coinbase explicitly lists the identity and holdings of Satoshi Nakamoto as a major risk factor in its official SEC filings, right next to inflation and geopolitical conflict. The market nuke is the first and most obvious reason why Satoshi's identity is so dangerous. It could wipe out trillions of dollars in value and set the crypto world back a decade, all with a single transaction. While a market crash would be the first shockwave, the second pillar of destruction is arguably worse for Bitcoin's future: an ideological civil war. Bitcoin is more than just code. It's a political and philosophical movement. Its power comes from being decentralized, meaning there's no single leader who can dictate its future. Changes to the protocol are made through a slow, deliberate process of community consensus. Developers, miners, users, and companies all have a say, and big changes only happen with overwhelming agreement. This process can be slow and messy, but it's what protects Bitcoin from being controlled by special interests and keeps the network neutral. Revealing Satoshi's identity would shatter this delicate balance forever. All of a sudden, Bitcoin would have a pope, a living founder whose words would carry an almost divine authority. Every opinion he expresses, every forum post he writes, every interview he gives would be treated as gospel by a huge part of the community. The leaderless protocol would be re-centralized around one person. He would become a benevolent dictator, whether he wanted to or not. To see the danger here, think about the fierce debates in Bitcoin's past. The most famous was the block size war, a multi-year fight over how to scale the network. On one side, the small blockers wanted to keep block sizes small to ensure anyone could run a full node, keeping things decentralized. On the other, the big blockers wanted bigger blocks for faster, cheaper transactions, even if it meant more centralization. The fight was so bitter, it ended in a hard fork, splitting the community and creating Bitcoin Cash. Now imagine that war happening again, but this time with Satoshi in the room. What if he came out and said, "My original vision was for larger blocks"? The big block side would be instantly legitimized. They'd declare themselves the true heirs to Satoshi's vision, and the small blockers would be branded as heretics. The community would be torn apart, not based on technical arguments, but on loyalty to one person's opinion. Bitcoin's governance model would be replaced by a political fight to win the founder's favor. This threat would hang over every future decision. What's Satoshi's stance on layer 2s like the Lightning Network? What does he think about privacy tech like Taproot or the environmental impact of mining? His opinion, no matter how casually stated, would become a weapon. Factions would form around him, making consensus impossible. He'd become the ultimate ideological kingmaker. A living, breathing Satoshi would also become a magnet for external pressure. Governments and corporations would lobby him relentlessly to change Bitcoin in their favor. Imagine a government pressuring Satoshi to support a backdoor in the protocol or to make transactions easier to trace. Bitcoin's leaderless nature is its best defense against this kind of coercion. A single leader, no matter how principled, is a single point of failure. They can be threatened, bribed, or legally forced into a corner. Satoshi's anonymity forces the community to rely on the strength of ideas and the quality of code, not the authority of a person. It creates a meritocracy where the best ideas win. If Satoshi were unmasked, that meritocracy would die and be replaced by a monarchy. The project would no longer be a global, open source protocol. It would become his project. The ideological war that followed would tear the community apart and destroy the very principle of decentralization that makes Bitcoin so revolutionary. The third and final pillar holding Bitcoin up is the most abstract, but also the most important: the myth of Satoshi Nakamoto. Bitcoin's power doesn't just come from its code, it comes from its story. The story of an anonymous genius who built a tool for freedom and then disappeared, leaving it as a gift to the world. This isn't just marketing, it's the philosophical bedrock of the entire project. Satoshi's anonymity is the ultimate expression of a trustless system. You don't need to trust the creator because the creator is irrelevant. You only need to trust the code. Unmasking Satoshi would kill this myth. The mysterious, almost legendary figure would be replaced by a flawed, ordinary human. The moment Satoshi is revealed to be, say, a computer scientist from California or a cryptographer from Europe, the project gets tied to that person and all their very human baggage. They'll have a past, political opinions, a nationality, and a life full of mistakes and controversies. That personal history would get tangled up with Bitcoin itself, tarnishing its image as a pure apolitical technology. Think of the legal and regulatory fallout. A known creator with $100 billion fortune would instantly become the biggest legal target on the planet. Tax agencies from every major country would come knocking, demanding their cut. This could trigger years of legal battles, casting a dark cloud over the entire crypto market. Even worse, the creator's nationality would tie Bitcoin to a specific government. If Satoshi is an American, does that give the US government some special claim over the network? It opens a Pandora's box of problems that Bitcoin's leaderless design was meant to avoid. The mystery of Satoshi is a powerful shield. It prevents the network from being personified. Without a leader to attack, criticize, or regulate, opponents have to deal with the technology itself. But a living founder becomes the face of the project, a convenient target for politicians, regulators, and critics. Every personal flaw would be used to discredit his creation. The narrative would shift from Bitcoin is a decentralized tool for financial freedom to Bitcoin is the controversial project of this one guy. Satoshi's greatest gift to Bitcoin wasn't the white paper or the source code, it was his disappearance. By walking away, he performed a kind of decentralized apotheosis, turning himself from a person into an idea. He ensured Bitcoin would have to stand on its own, governed by its community and secured by its code. He made himself a ghost so that his creation could have a life of its own. Revealing his identity would be a desecration of that founding act. It would be like discovering the laws of physics were written by a committee with a political agenda. It would strip Bitcoin of its mystique, its philosophical power, and its core story of pristine, leaderless neutrality. It would turn a revolution into just another product and a myth back into a man, and a man can be broken. The huge danger of unmasking Satoshi hasn't stopped the world from trying. The list of potential candidates reads like a who's who of modern cryptography, each with their own trail of tantalizing clues and firm denials. Looking at these suspects isn't just about satisfying our curiosity, it's a way to understand the kind of person we might be dealing with, and to see just how fragile the system becomes if any of them were the one. First, there's Hal Finney, a legendary cryptographer and cypherpunk. Finney was one of Bitcoin's earliest champions and the person who received the very first Bitcoin transaction from Satoshi. He lived in the same small town for a decade as Dorian Nakamoto, the man Newsweek incorrectly outed as Satoshi. His writing style even has some similarities to Satoshi's. Before his tragic death from ALS in 2014, Finney strongly denied being the creator. If he was, the secret may have died with him, and the keys to that billion-dollar fortune may be lost forever, which is possibly the safest outcome. Then there's Nick Szabo, another brilliant cryptographer who many believe is the most likely candidate. Years before Bitcoin, Szabo designed a system called BitGold, which was remarkably similar. Linguistic analysis comparing Szabo's writing to Satoshi's has shown a striking overlap. Like the others, Szabo has repeatedly denied it, but if it were him, a man whose ideas were direct precursors to Bitcoin, his influence over the project's future would be enormous. We also have Adam Back, the inventor of Hashcash, the proof of work algorithm that Satoshi cited in the Bitcoin white paper. As one of Satoshi's early correspondents, Back was in the inner circle from day one. Recently released emails even show him advising Satoshi on core concepts. Back has also consistently denied being the creator, but his foundational work makes him a constant suspect. Of course, you can't talk about Satoshi candidates without mentioning Craig Wright, the Australian computer scientist who, unlike everyone else, aggressively claims he is Satoshi Nakamoto. For years, Wright has been on a legal crusade to be recognized as Bitcoin's founder, suing anyone who doubts him. But his claims have been widely debunked after he repeatedly failed to provide definitive proof, like signing a message with Satoshi's private keys. The whole saga culminated in a landmark UK High Court trial in 2024. After reviewing a mountain of evidence, the judge delivered a crushing verdict. Craig Wright is not Satoshi Nakamoto. The judge found that Wright had engaged in forgery on an industrial scale and had lied repeatedly and extensively. As one crypto commentator put it, the verdict made it clear we are all Satoshi except Craig Wright. The hunt doesn't stop there. The media has thrown out its own candidates, often with disastrous results. In 2014, Newsweek splashed the face of Dorian Nakamoto, a retired Japanese-American physicist, on its cover, basically because of his name. The media circus destroyed his privacy, and he firmly denied any connection to Bitcoin. These failed attempts just highlight the core truth. We're desperately trying to put a human face on a revolutionary idea. But every time we try, we see the danger. The media frenzy, the ruined privacy, and the potential for one person's life to hijack the entire narrative. The rogues gallery of Satoshi suspects is a constant reminder that the identity is a distraction. The real work is protecting the system he built. We're left with the central paradox of Bitcoin. The one question that has fueled a global obsession for more than a decade is the one question we should hope is never answered. We've seen the three pillars of destruction: the market nuke that would vaporize trillions, the ideological civil war that would shatter the community, and the death of the myth that would rob Bitcoin of its power. Any one of these would be a catastrophe. Together, they are a complete system failure. Satoshi Nakamoto understood this better than anyone. His decision to stay anonymous wasn't an accident. It was a core feature of the system he designed. He knew that for Bitcoin to become truly decentralized and trustless, it had to be severed from its creator. It had to belong to no one so it could belong to everyone. His anonymity is Bitcoin's shield, protecting it from the corrupting influence of a central leader and the coercive power of the state. His silence is the foundation of its stability. His greatest act wasn't creating Bitcoin, it was walking away. The search for Satoshi will surely continue. The mystery is too tempting, and the fortune at stake is too big. But for those who understand what makes Bitcoin valuable, the goal isn't to find Satoshi, it's to become him, to embrace the ideals of decentralization, privacy, and sovereignty that he set in motion. In the end, it no longer matters who Satoshi Nakamoto was. The creator has become irrelevant, the community is now the guardian of the code, and the network is the ultimate source of truth. The question of his identity is a distraction from the far more important work of building, securing, and fighting for the future of this technology. Bitcoin has outgrown its founder. In a way, that line from the court ruling against Craig Wright has become the defining mantra of the space. In the decentralized world Satoshi created, we are all Satoshi now.